everybody, and welcome to Cultivating Business. I'm Kevin McLaughlin, Managing Director with Centri Consulting, where I lead our cannabis practice. I have an awesome guest today. Very excited to speak with him. He's a bit of a Renaissance man. He's involved with various nonprofits, is the co-founder of the Panther Group, which provides various services within the cannabis industry. And he's also the statistician for the 76ers. Our guest today is Scott Berman. Scott, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Yep, really appreciate the time. So let's jump right in here. First, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into the space, and how you fit into the cannabis industry in today's world.
Sure. So previously for the cannabis space, I was a co-founder of a digital ad agency here in Philadelphia, and we specialized in politics and healthcare. So I got involved in cannabis politics in 2014. And we were running ads for a ballot initiative in Alaska, and it passed by 20,000 votes, and it was exciting. And so we started looking at the next 2 years and 2 years after that, which states had a good shot to legalize cannabis. And so that's how we got into it. Also from the healthcare side, we did medical ailment and prescription targeting, and I saw a clear convergence with medical marijuana and traditional healthcare industry.
Awesome. Certainly, you're involved in the early days, right? And the industry's evolved here. I know you, as part of the Panther Group, you're involved, we'll say, in the capital markets. How do you see the capital markets evolving in cannabis? There's really no timetable for federal legalization. It continues to be a challenge for businesses of all shapes and sizes. So how do you see that evolving?
Yeah, it's a lot has changed in the years since then. I mean, we started in the venture side of it in 2017, got into the Panther Opportunity Fund, and we started investing in cannabis companies of all sizes and shapes. It was a lot easier to raise money then. We had a lot of individuals that were super interested in the space, and we were getting angel investors to come into our fund on a regular basis. The last 2 or 3 years, it's been more difficult. And part of it is because the things are moving slowly and a lot of companies are struggling. And also the public markets haven't been great. So a lot of outside investors have looked at it and said, I'm not sure I'm going to wait on cannabis. So that's the bad news. The good news is that there's still a lot of revenue being generated. There's a lot of jobs being created. Cannabis is selling like crazy in a lot of different markets. So what I see, first of all, there's been a shift to debt lending. So that's something that's happened in the last year or two, where there's more debt financing than there has been. And the equity, I think, will come. It's just we need some triggers. We need some federal legislation to come through. We need more states to come online. We need some of these stocks to go a little higher. And then I think that there's a lot of money on the sidelines from institutions and high net worth individuals that will start to come into the space.
That's great insight. Glad to hear some good news, some positive news. But yeah, I think any type of reform obviously would be fantastic here. From an investor perspective, Scott, if you're looking at a business in the early stages, what can set that business apart as they're looking to go out and raise capital, whether it's Series A or, to your point earlier, flavor of the month in terms of some type of debt financing? What can those types of folks in the early stages do to help set themselves apart?
Well, I think the first thing is really understanding the landscape of cannabis and where you're operating. As you know, it's siloed state by state. So if you're a plant touching business, are you in one state? And if so, what is the evolution of that state? Are you a cultivator in California, or are you a retailer in Connecticut? So that's a big thing, is like where the state is in terms of its evolution. If you're an ancillary business, are you able to serve cannabis and other verticals? That's one thing that we look at. How do you compare to your the competitive landscape? Everyone thinks like they've come up with the first and best idea in cannabis. And I always say, someone else is doing that. What makes you better than them? And how are you going to differentiate yourself and gain market share? So understanding the competitive landscape and having a plan for that is really important. one of the most important things I look at is the team, and who are the founders, what have they done in their previous careers, who are they surrounded themselves with, and what is their plan to build their team. Once the money comes in, a lot of hiring happens, and then it actually goes down to like, who are your key vendors and your relationships. Do you have, a great consulting group and an accounting firm and a good law firm that's behind you? Do you have the right insurance? Do you have a good cap table and corporate governance? So once a lot of those things line up, it makes us a lot more comfortable. Oh, and one final thing that's super important is, what's your exit potential? What's your time frame for an exit? Who could potentially buy your company? And so for every investor, we want to hear that story and make sure that there's a plan. It doesn't have to happen, soon, but it has to have a plan.
No, that's awesome insight for folks who are listening, right? Being able to, again, things don't always go to plan, but being able to think from a forward-looking perspective and have an understanding of where opportunities are from a exit standpoint. Now I know, Scott, you have a background in marketing, so would love to shift gears a little bit, talk about the intersection of marketing and brands in the space, and really, as the industry has evolved and now is there's a little bit more focus on the East Coast with states going recreational, throughout the East Coast. How do you see the marketing and brands evolving as those states now come online? Because historically, a lot of the brand focus has been West Coast, California.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I spent a lot of time thinking about this. So first of all, we certainly see a lot of brands moving to the East Coast or trying to. Things are not so going well in California. There's probably 3,500 different brands. And same thing with Colorado and Oregon. So a lot of them are searching for new audiences. What we have here on the East Coast is an addressable audience of 30 to 40 million people. And I'm just talking about the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, you have Maryland. All of those states are going to be adult use. So there's going to be a lot more consumers. At the same time, the brand awareness is in the first inning. There's so little brand awareness. Most people have been consuming cannabis from the black market. They don't really know much about what brands are good. So there's a big opportunity for every category for you to come to the East Coast and become the number one, number two edibles, the gummy bear guys, or the vape pens, or the pre-roll joints. Some of these form factors are really not even available out here. Like, as you guys know, Pennsylvania, we don't even allow edibles right now. So at some point that'll change, and then edibles will gain market share here. One key thing that I focus on a lot is data. I'm always focusing on that and understanding what audiences are buying what products. We look at age, gender, zip code, income level. Are they consuming flower, concentrates, edibles? And what's fascinating to me about the cannabis consumer is it really goes from age 21 to age 80 something. Like, there's a lot of options for people to consume in different ways. And so how do we bring a brand from the West Coast here, understand who's buying it out West? Because there's a lot of data. We can learn a lot from the mature states and bring that information and knowledge to the East Coast very quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity there. It'll evolve as some of these states come online, but I think that's helpful. I think background and things to think about, and we'll see how it plays out in the next couple of years.
I just wanted to add one other thing, Kevin. I believe that cannabis is evolving just like other CPG businesses, and it's also evolving similar to how the alcohol business has developed. And so I think we're going to see a lot of trends that look very familiar. I'm trying to apply regular, advertising tactics and data services to the industry because we think it's becoming relatively normal.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, even if you think on the alcohol side consumption, you see some of the seltzers and some of those things, and like more recently that have transpired here, right? Where there's certain target audiences for those, and then you kind of break it up by demographic that way. I think, to your point, cannabis is no different.
Yes.
Now, I always like to end with some predictions with our guests, and not going to hold you to this, but I have a couple of things that I'd like to get your thoughts on. So, what's a prediction you have for cannabis in 2023? As we look forward here, we're at the end of the first quarter, and then also, what are your thoughts on the Sixers? Where do you think they're gonna end up? So, one with a couple predictions here.
Sure. So first of all, for cannabis, I believe safe banking actually has a shot this year, or maybe like early next year before the presidential election of 24. I think there's a lot of support on the Republican side, believe it or not. And I think that people are, as more states come online, I think there's going to be more pressure on Washington to change some of these laws. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I think the emergence of the East Coast states is going to shift a lot of attention away from the West. We know New York is the financial and media capital of the world. There's a lot of licenses being awarded. There's going to be a lot of new jobs, a lot of businesses. So I believe that the pressure, that's going to create other pressure on states in the East Coast that are going to, we're surrounded here in Pennsylvania by adult use states now, so that'll create pressure here. And so I think that will change things. I think also we may get some positive momentum on the stocks. And I think that's important because people that aren't like in the industry like we are, they look at the stock market and they try and figure out how the sector's doing. And so if we have some increase, if the stocks start to do well, more people will be interested in this space and they'll invest more. So I do think that capital will flow a little bit more freely than it did last year. And that'll help people grow and evolve their businesses. I also think M&A activity will really increase. We've already seen there's a lot of distressed businesses. There's a lot of businesses that need to restructure themselves or find a bigger partner in order to survive. So I think we're going to see an increase in that activity. So I'm generally very optimistic about things, and I think that we're going to have a good year. Last year was not a great year for cannabis, but I think this year will be a lot better.
Love the positivity, right, in the industry right now. So awesome stuff.
Yeah. So now, as far as Kevin, our favorite subject, the Sixers. The Sixers have had a very good regular season. They have an excellent team going into the playoffs. They have momentum. They have a good bench. What they don't have is any success in the playoffs in the last 20 years. I'm painfully aware of it. And so I think they're going to make a little run and at least get to the conference finals. But I've thought that every year at this time of year, I've had the same feeling. So we'll see what happens. Time will tell.
That's the fun part of, I guess, being a fan, right? Is you get build up just to get let down. But I think this year will be a little different, right? We had the Phillies, we had the Eagles. They obviously didn't go all the way, so maybe the Sixers will get us there.
I think it's our year in Philly. World Series, Super Bowl, and now NBA Finals. That would be fun.
There we go. All right. Well, Scott, I really appreciate the time. Thanks for joining us, and great chatting with you.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We have a great episode planned just ahead of 420 next month, so stay tuned, and please join us on next month's episode of Cultivating Business in April.